Welcome back to Newsmaker Live. Thank you very much for staying with us. We're taking your calls right now on the program, and our first caller asked about the number of inmates who occupy one cell. Can you give us an indication as to how that is arranged?
It varies depending on the unit and the number of inmates in that unit. So what we would do is spread the inmates around. The numbers are high. So in some cases where you have 4 cells, you may end up 4 beds, you may end up with 6 people with 2 additional mattresses put down. So there are some cases where there may be 6 in a 4-man cell, but 2 mattresses are added for 6.
And do you have any single or one-man cells at the facility?
We do.
But I mean, apart from the isolation units,
we do all of the maximum security units are single cells.
Okay. And how many beds do you have in the maximum unit?
50.
50. Oh wow, that's a high number, considering you have 450 beds in the prison in total. Now, in terms of putting more inmates in a cell than the cell can accommodate and put in the mattresses, is it a situation where the inmates decide, okay, well, I'll take a bunk, and you take the mattress, or is that something that the correctional officers decide?
Well, no. If you have four men in a cell and then you have 2 additional ones assigned, the next 2
they'll get the mattress.
Right,
okay,
exactly.
so it's first come, first serve. So those who come in first get the better accommodation. Better accommodation. Now, you have been in this job for a little while. You have been the first director.
Yes.
Well, the only director of the prison.
Yes.
Since it opened in 2003. What sort of shifts have you seen from your experience back in 2003 and coming into 2013 or this time around?
Well, I think we have, like any generation, you have you have different newer staff. The newer staff, they're obviously younger, they're smarter, they're sharper, and so you see the difference in the newer generation. That's very obvious. That is something that is very obvious from where we came. You remember we made a complete shift. We changed uniforms. We made a complete makeover of our facility and a makeover of our staff. We need to continue doing that, professionalizing them, making them feel proud of what they do, let them understand that this is it's a career, and make them feel part of that. And that's our goal, and that's what the most of our partners that are overseas, like the National Associations of Blacks in Criminal Justice, is here to assist us in trying to do that.
We have a call on the line. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm just calling to ask, some time ago there was some breaking, like from some outside sources into the jail, freeing a few inmates. I'd like to ask the director what is his take on that matter, and what would he do to prevent such circumstances in the future.
Okay, thanks for that question, caller.
Well,
Welcome.
Well, as you know, we had the successful breakout of some inmates. It was the Venezuelan national inmates where you had some armed men came in and helped them escape. They cut the fence, and we have to be more vigilant. It's our jobs to be more vigilant and to make sure that everyone is prepared for any unusual incident. And I don't know of any one thing we could have done at that time that could have prevented that.
Yeah, well, I thought that this was a situation that, you were not in a position to do anything from the information we got, and it was a well coordinated attack. The guys who broke them out seemed to be highly skilled. They moved with military precision, in that attack. So, I don't know what kind of training that our men go through that would have caused them to repel such an attack, or do we go through such training?
Well, what it did for us was, there was this perception that certain things will not and cannot happen in St. Lucia. I think that was able to bring light to some of the things that we normally talk about in training, that it's possible. Particularly where our prison is located. It's secluded. There's lots of opportunity for, for these kind of incidents to happen. Now it's incumbent on us to train our security staff to prepare for such incidents, and that's what we're trying to do.
Now before that call, we have another call. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your question.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
What I would like to ask is that do the inmates end up in fights? Do they fight?
Yes, they do. Like any other prison, they do. Yes.
How serious is that fight? Is it do they butcher them out physically, by hands or anything, based weapon or that you don't know about?
Yeah, no, like any other prison, they use homemade weapons. It's no different than any other prison.
Okay, thank you.
You have to appreciate that you have no Boy Scouts in there. They're in prison because they have contravened some law, and as a result, you're not dealing with easy people in a prison, and it's a concentration of such people, in one location. We have another call. Good evening. Please go ahead with your question.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay.
Go ahead, please, caller.
Okay, then. Good evening. I am just curious. What is the percentage of rape cases that involves men in the prison currently, and what are the preventative measures taken for situations like that?
The percentage of that's actually a good question. I do not have the percent. I couldn't tell you what the percentage is right now, but it's something that I could. If you call me at work, I can. I don't have that statistics with me now. As far as the treatment, unfortunately, we do not have a treatment program. We have counseling, but complete treatment program, I cannot tell you that we do. We do not have it.
Okay.
But there are these cases that are reported.
Yes, there are.
And I mean, is it widespread? Is it something that happens on few occasions?
Do I misunderstand? She's saying rape cases not within the prison.
Yeah,
no, well, actually, I'm referring to rape cases in the prison itself.
In the prison.
In the prison itself. Oh, okay. Well, I will tell you, I have been there for 10 years, and I have never had a reported case of prison rape. None.
Okay. No, I watched Untold Stories recently, and I was just wondering, because you have persons who always talk about their experiences after they come from prison.
Yes.
So, I don't know if it's not reported, or I don't know if you guys.
Well, I couldn't tell you there's not consented sex, but I have never had a reported rape case at the Borderley Correctional Facility.
Okay. All right, understandable.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for your contribution, caller. Now, if you, what is the procedure? I was reading a report recently, a report done by, can't remember who it was. Was it the doctor signed, or she was quoted in there as well? And she intimated that there are cases of forced sex, but then those cases are not dealt with in the manner that they should, like the crimes that they are. Is it a stigma thing, that the men don't say that they have been abused, or is it a situation where because they are in prison that those concerns are not taken seriously?
Well, like I said, I've never had any complaints of it, so or any reports of such. Now, I know of the report that you talked about, but if it's not reported, there's no allegation, there's no investigation, and we've never had any instance of it. I'm not telling you that it doesn't happen. I'm not, telling you.
Right.
Yeah.
But the reports would not come to you initially. They would have to go through a chain. And what is that chain that they would go through if such a report is to be made?
Well, it would reach me. I mean, it would reach me. And it's a small facility. Even if the written report doesn't get to me, the verbal will.
Okay.
And as you walk
And
the
you'd-
ground,
you'd
yes,
act on
yes,
that
right,
verbal report.
yeah, absolutely.
We have another call on the line. Please go ahead with your question, caller. Okay, we lost that caller. Now, you were making the point that there is a difference right now, you know, when you started in 2003 and now, in the attitudes of the workers. You said that you have a more youthful team. Were you saying that it is a good thing, or is that a bad thing in terms of, you know, the younger people taking responsibility and probably engaging in activities that do not really benefit anyone in the prison system? Well,
I think it's an absolute good thing to infuse new blood into a system, and I think what you have is although we will always need the experience versus the young, new, vibrant person. So it's a combination, but what you have is a more willing person who is willing to change the old ways of doing things, because it's when you have the older officers who were trained one way, and we moved from a penal system to a rehabilitative environment, and it's in some cases a very tough transition to make when you've been operating one way and trying to convince you that the new way is the best way. In some cases, some of your older staff thinks you're now going soft on criminals, you know, so it's trying to convince them that the new way is the way to go.
We have another call. Good evening. Please go ahead, caller.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, hello, good night.
Good night.
I'm just calling to ask a question. Why doesn't Mr. Herman to prevent the magistrates from sending up useless cases to jail?
But there's no way. There's no way I can prevent the magistrate.
Cases like, you know, because you could prevent it because it's filling up the prison and there's community.
Let me just give you some. Let me just ask you to listen to us through your telephone and not the television set. Obviously, you're hearing the delay, so please you listen to us through your telephone and not your television set, so that we can interact a little better. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
So that's what I'm just calling. So, I mean, there's counseling to resuscitate.
All right, thanks, caller, for your contribution. I mean, this is something that's out of your hands.
Yes, we can't tell. We can't tell the magistrate what.
Yeah, the magistrate. It's a different system. The courts, they do the sentencing, and you just follow through. So pretty much, you know, it's like the government. The ministers or cabinet would lay out the policy, and the permanent secretaries would execute. You know, they're responsible for the operation. So, you know, the courts would sentence someone to a certain prison term, and as the director of corrections, you are responsible. It is your duty under the law to ensure that that person is kept there until he has satisfied the requirement of the court.
And hopefully we attempt to reform that person.
Yeah, and talking about the reform, you have a farm program that is going on as well, and it has been successful. You have the tailoring program, you have the joinery program, and the carpentry program. Tell me a bit about that, and how many people actually take advantage of those programs within the system.
Well, unfortunately, not enough. It's a limited number, and again, we have 500. We have limited skills instructors, so it's only the numbers are under 10. So although what you have is a good end product, but the numbers are very small. And it's good, it's successful. We continuously have inmates going through those programs, but the numbers continue to be small.
We have another call on the line. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good night. I have a family member that's in prison right now, and he talks about they have the farm at Bodley, and they don't give them fruits from the farm, and all the products, they have pigs and stuff, but they sold it to the public, and they import some fatty pork from abroad to feed the prisoners, you know. And I think that's a problem. And I think Mr. Herman, you should do a better job, because and plus the court system needs to do a better job, because sorry, yeah. So I think you need to do a better job, Mr. Herman, and stop the overcrowding of the prison right now. And it's very crowded right now because I hear it on the news every day. You should demand that the court, like those certain people that have those petty cases, not to bring them in prison. Have them work them in the have them work around town and do stuff like that. You know, when you have someone that's still upon a rights and you have him in prison, what do you think you're doing?
All right, thanks a lot, caller, for your contribution. I mean, I think we need to go through an education exercise where people understand, you know, what your responsibility is, what the responsibility of the courts are, you know, in terms of the sentencing, and that you have no control over who comes into the prison. You are not the one who decides, you know, if someone is sentenced to prison or not. You're just responsible, as I was explaining earlier, for holding the individual. We have another caller. Please go ahead, caller.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. I live in Denver, and we get information about the prison and how the system is and all these other things. What I need to know from you, and you may not be able to answer that question, but I'm hoping that it reaches the far end of the stick, meaning government and other associations and different, you know, people who deal with that system, which basically we all may be part of it. With the prison system, the last callers and callers who have been calling before, I think what we're trying to see is that we have a situation where we have a small prison that is being overburdened by the system with lots of cases and individuals going up there who basically, when you think about it, should not be there. In other words, you find people who are going to prison for minor offenses that in other more developed countries would not even see the light of a full-time prison like Bodley.
Yeah, we agree, and I think the other callers made that point.
Exactly.
Right.
So, I mean, we have police stations, local police stations with jails and all these things, and you don't find them being utilized often. We have programs like the STEP program and all these programs. And we have people who are committing minor offenses. Why don't we table in Parliament or put in legislation whereby these people can do community service, whereby they can do something that can actually impact society for the betterment? Paying people to cut grass by the road to go back in the next 2 months or 3 months doesn't make sense. Why don't you take these people who do minor offenses and make them pay back to society? You know, sometimes the worst thing you can do somebody is to make them, you know, do things that to them might be humiliating, and for other people, their peers to see them doing that. That may be sometimes be the worst thing. To put them in prison whereby they're eating on the public space and they're sitting there and relaxing, looking at, trust me, Denver has a very nice view, and they're just looking at the ocean and getting the sea breeze may not be the right fix. I think this prison is being overcrowded, and we need to do something about it.
Yeah, and I think as you prefaced your comment with the fact that this may not be a question for Mr. Herman, but rather for probably the Justice Minister and other legislators who actually make the laws, who write the laws and determine what should happen as far as how things work in the society.
That he would have some level of authority or some sort of, he would be someone that would be an advisor to the government. At the end of the day, he is the controller of the Bodley Correctional Facility.
Right.
So if he says one, two things, so that it may actually be of more impact than if someone like myself says. I mean, who am I? I don't have the authority to say that, maybe. But if he says something like that, they would probably listen to him.
Well, I
Thanks for that contribution.
If we may, I agree with the caller. I mean, it's something that we've advocated for over the years. It's just part of the same alternative sentencing. It is, but it's that whole program requires some form of administration. There's a small bureaucracy required to run such a program. Who supervises them? Who monitors them? Who keeps track of it? Are they part of corrections? Are they part of probation? Are they part of parole? You know,
Right.
So there's several things that needs to be taken into consideration when you do that.
Now, just before we go to break, one of the points the caller made was that there are other ways to humiliate people, and I'm not sure.
Is that what we want to do?
Is that what we're looking? Is that what we're looking to do?
Yeah.
Is it a matter of humiliation, or is it someone receiving a punishment for a crime? And if there is no rehabilitative aspect to the imprisonment, then what purpose does it serve? When you lock somebody up and when they come out they engage in the same activities, there's no rehabilitation. But on that note, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with your calls and our conversation with the Director of Corrections, Mr. Hilary Herman. Stay with us.